Hey guys, welcome to The Grey Escape. I'm Natalie Gray and I'll be back right after this. Hello, a very special episode today. Truthfully, I feel we've broken new ground here, and I am extremely privileged to share this with you. First of all, it's impossible to introduce today's guest without first introducing the organization that has been such an intrinsic part of this gentleman's life for so many years, and that is the theatre and training centre known as the Groundlings. For those unfamiliar, the Groundlings, just like UCB and Second City, is one of the preeminent improv training grounds in Los Angeles. And the Groundlings in particular has crafted comedic gems like Kristen Wiig, Will Ferrell, Melissa McCarthy, and many, many more. It is also a stage that has proven to be consistent feeding grounds for what is considered by most to be the holy grail of American sketch comedy, Saturday Night Live. I'm very proud to present today's guest, Sean Hogan, who himself is one of those comedic gems, who shot up the ranks of the Groundlings in record speed and held a place on the coveted main stage for a staggering 8.5 years. I take my hat off and bow deeply in respect of what you're about to hear, which is not only a brutally honest account of a life in Hollywood, but also an instructive, valuable exploration into passion and commitment. A true story of just what it takes to make it in this town, and what happens if having what it takes still isn't enough. Sean Hogan.
Yes.
I met you when I did a little workshop at the Groundlings and became aware of what a great teacher that you are.
Thank you very much.
So I went home and I Googled you, because that's what people do now. We Google everything.
I know.
And my God, you're funny.
Oh, thank you.
You are so funny. Those videos on your website, which is SeanHoganWriter.com.
Thank you.
People
yes.
check that out.
Got it.
I mean, I watched them. I even showed them to other people, and I was like, "You have to watch this."
Thank you.
You and the video where you've got the super slow walk.
Yeah.
Was that inspired by Monty Python by any chance?
I'm a huge Monty Python fan. I'm 57, so when
You are not.
Yeah, I am.
You are not 57.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I'm totally serious.
Good God.
So when I was in high school and feeling very uncomfortable with the way people were behaving, suddenly all the cliques and everything, and I didn't feel like I fit in, all of a sudden on PBS, Monty Python comes on, and you're seeing this wonderful, surreal comedy that the fact that it almost makes no sense and is so absurd, it just made everything seem like, oh, yes, let's just enjoy how crazy life is and how uncomfortable we all are. It became the most important thing. And unfortunately, PBS kept moving the show, so you couldn't find it in the United States for a while. But that really influenced my taste in sketch comedy. I'm really like premise comedy over character. And I love surreal out there stuff. But, I'll tell you how the man with the small stride came. There's a level at the Groundlings that you're going through the training, and it's called Writer's Lab. And it's where you first start writing sketches. And I had this job in a warehouse where I was just, packing boxes up, really boring. So you had a lot of time to just sit and think. And I started to think, what are the deal breakers when women are dating a guy? Like, what do they discover about the guy? Like, if they don't smoke, he's a smoker or whatever. And I thought, it's usually, when I hear women complain about dating men, they'll say, he seems so great. And then I found out he has this thing, whatever it is. And I thought, what is the most ridiculous thing that could possibly be a problem for someone that wouldn't be apparent immediately. And I thought, well, we all have a stride. We don't think about it. Our strides are different lengths. Make a guy, as best as I could in the sketch, seem like a dream, and then he has this one flaw. And that's how I came up with the idea. It was my very first sketch idea that I ever got.
Really?
And to this day, it's the one that people comment on the most. So I think I peaked, unfortunately, right out of the gate. But yeah, that's that one. But yeah, thank you for talking those up.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
For people listening, can you just perhaps do a capsule explanation of the difference between a premise sketch
Absolutely.
and a character sketch?
All right. Well, I'll start with character. When a writer writes a character sketch, they're creating a human being, a very specific human being that has one flaw. They have one personality quirk that dominates everything else. You can usually describe a character in a character sketch with one adjective. Some of the great ones that have recently been done on SNL, Kristen Wiig has a Target lady, and you could say she's ridiculously enthusiastic. So all of her behavior comes from taking the word enthusiasm, and the actress just takes on that point of view and exaggerates it and reacts with enthusiasm to anything. And then the humor comes from her being a cashier at Target. How can you possibly be enthusiastic? It makes it 5 times funnier. So you usually create a character sketch by observing someone you either don't know, or even better, someone you know, or taking two people and smashing them together. So there's an alchemy to it that I think is really, really fun. Then you really feel like, well, I'm not just seeing like my neighbor and then I do them on stage. You usually have to exaggerate them. But when you take two elements and smash them together, you are actually creating a person that does not really exist. And there's a thrill to that. I'm more of an introvert and a thinker. So my tendency is to go the other way, which is to premise, which is you comment on life. You comment on what it's like to be alive. You observe. You find something that either is true about life, and your point of view is, this is ridiculous. This should be laughed at. Let's all acknowledge that we all have this experience, and can we all agree that this is ridiculous? And you exaggerate it and make fun of it. You can also create surreal premises by first taking a normal situation like going to the dentist, and you think, okay, what normally happens when you go to the dentist? What should a dentist do? What do they typically do? You could make a list, and you say, fine, no comedy yet. Make a second list of the opposite of every one of those. Like, really go out there with it. For instance, the magazines in the waiting room are pretty tame. What if it was all hardcore porn? Or all these oral surgery magazines that have gruesome photographs. A dentist isn't going to put that in their waiting room. Okay, so you create a premise sketch by saying, right, but what if? So you begin with like, what if you walked into a dentist's office and you looked at the magazines and there was nothing but gruesome surgery? And then you would build on that and say, and then what if the dentist came out covered in blood and some patient came out of his office screaming, saying, he's a butcher, don't go. And like, who was that? Never mind. That could never happen. It's really the opposite. So you're using irony to create a premise. What you can also do is just create something more like Monty Python, which I really love. Something that couldn't happen, but for some reason it's relatable on some level of like, yeah, some things are so strange in life, you don't even know what to think about them. So dentist sketch, same thing, but what if you're lying down, the dentist is examining your teeth, and suddenly all these people start showing up with equipment to shoot a porn movie. Actors, lights, sound, whatever. And you got the thing in your mouth and you're saying, excuse me, what's going on here? And the dentist says, oh, I hope you don't mind. I have some huge student loans to pay. On Wednesdays, I rent out my office to porn shoots. It won't bother you, will it? It's very Python to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then someone could knock on the door, and it could be some other totally inappropriate, ridiculous thing that should not go on in a dentist's office. And he could say, you guys are supposed to be here Thursday. Oh, sorry. And they leave. So there's a way to build that sketch. And then, the porn movie would start to be shot, and where would it go from there?
Right.
So you create two elements, a normal situation going to the dentist, and then the skill is what is the weird thing that you think of to add? And that's the real genius of a comedian in expressing this is how my mind thinks.
Right.
And I'm just so in awe of the Pythons and their surreal minds, and they have a sketch. Are you pretty familiar with Python?
I mean, especially the sketches that are the more famous
The famous
sketches.
ones. There is one, though, I don't know if it's as famous, but in terms of a premise, it's the most surreal one I've ever seen in my life. It's called Confuse a Cat. Do you know that one?
I don't know if I do,
Here's the
actually.
premise. If your cat is depressed, you can call this service. These guys show up in a van, and it's John Cleese plays this British colonel, and he comes marching out, and then a bunch of guys in white suits start unloading the van, and they build a stage in your backyard, and then they put on a confusing show that your cat watches and becomes so confused it's no longer depressed. Now, I don't know how you think of that idea, but I love it. It's like taking LSD. It's so mind
Which they probably
expanding.
did.
Yeah, you wonder. But yeah, so...
One of the sketches that does come to mind when you were saying about that premise sketch that was one of my favorites was the self-defense class for fruits. Yeah.
Again, how do you think of that? And it's taking it so seriously, this completely ridiculous premise. That is why Monty Python is so wonderful and funny. Their stuff is so silly, like the fish dance. That makes no sense. It's very short. It's just two people slapping each other with fish. You just love it. Yeah, I just absolutely love Monty Python.
Do you ever have you ever tried stand-up as well?
I have. I always wanted to be a stand-up comedian from when I was a little kid. Listened to Bill Cosby and Bob Newhart and Nichols and May. I was a child of the early '60s, and this was when everyone had a hi-fi and everyone was buying albums, and comedy albums came into vogue. You would play them at parties and these cocktail parties, and Lenny Bruce, which my father did not let me listen to, but I would listen to them as a kid over and over again, and I didn't get the jokes. I mean, the references were beyond my knowledge, but I would listen to the rhythm. I loved that people were laughing. I loved listening to my father laugh, because my father could be very scary, and he had a temper, but he felt so safe when he would just find something funny. He had a great sense of humor. So I think that was the origin of it. And then I started watching stand-ups a lot whenever I could catch them, usually on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show. Then I got incredibly shy, right around 7th grade, some hormonal thing, I don't know what happened, but I had been pretty outgoing, but I became incredibly shy. And the desire to be a stand-up comedian increased because I felt like, to me, those are the bravest, most extroverted people in the world. They're like superheroes to me now, knowing how difficult even speaking to another person is right now. So when I moved to LA, I decided I'm going to try stand-up comedy. And I tried off and on 3.5, 4 years going to open mics. And here's what I ultimately came away with. When I watch a stand-up comedian, I'm in heaven. I love it when they're making me laugh. It looks like they are having the best time making me laugh. When I started to do it, what I realized is you have to do the same jokes over and over and over again. After about 10 times, I felt like I was choking on what I didn't even want to say the joke. I was so over and done. And then I saw this comedian that I'd seen years and years and years ago, and I remembered their act very distinctly. And then I saw them like 5 years later, and they were doing the same jokes. And I thought, this guy has been doing this material every night since the last time I saw him. I don't know how he's not committing suicide. Also, the life of a stand-up comedian was so lonely. This road travel, and you're in the middle of the country in these small towns waiting for it to be night. What do you do during the day? You go to malls, you shop, you go to movies. The life looked gruesome. So what I'm basically saying is, when you observe something from the outside, you get an idea of what it would be like, and then you do it, and it's heartbreaking when you realize this is awful. Like, I could never do this.
Right.
And so that's what happened to my stand-up. And I haven't gone back. Last time I did stand-up was 1990.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How great, though, that you did have a crack at it, so you don't have to live your life wondering, how would that have been? And could I have been this great, happy stand-up comedian?
Yeah.
You did it. You got it out of your system.
That's a very good point. It's also, sometimes people ask me, well, why do you do this? And why are you not trying to get work so much now? And my answer is, my motivation for getting into acting in the first place and then wanting to be on stage and doing comedy was I had to prove something to myself, given how shy I was through junior high and high school. I mean, I'm talking of clinically shy, just really, really shy. I don't know what. I have an idea. I burned my house down in 7th grade by mistake.
Like literally burned your house
Yeah, it
down?
didn't burn completely down. It was gutted and we had to move out. But life seemed pretty smooth and idyllic really all the way through.
How did you do that?
I was, a lot of, boys when they're 12, 13, we're little pyromaniacs. Like, we like to burn things and we get firecrackers and blow things up.
Yeah.
And I was playing with little army men. I also had some sort of I like to create battle scenes and then make them realistic with real explosions and things like that. I don't know what I was trying to do. I probably should have gone into like miniatures and film or something. Maybe I had some early aptitude for that, but I was doing it in the fireplace, and I ran out of whatever lighter fluid or something I was using. So I grabbed a can of turpentine, which I knew was flammable, and it just, they have those unscrewable caps, and I just dumped it on top of the little flame that was in the fireplace, and the flame went right inside the can. The whole can ignited, and I dropped it. It was full, too.
Good grief.
So it was like a river of fire, and we had a tile floor, so the fire just went right into the curtains. The curtains went up immediately. The house was engulfed in flames within 2-3 minutes. It was unbelievable how fast it was.
How are you even here?
How am I even here? I got out. Luckily, no one in my family was killed. The only thing that died was my chameleon, a little lizard that I hated because when I tried to touch him or hold him, he would bite me. So I actually wasn't that heartbroken when he perished in the fire, but I don't know if I would be here if someone had died. I don't know if I could have handled it. I took it very hard, is my point. And if I could ask like one question of the Oracle, what would I be like if I did not burn my house down in 7th grade? How would I have been a different person? Would I have gone through those 7-8 years of just crushing shyness? I don't know, but I'd love to know the answer to that question. It may not have mattered at all, but I took it very hard. I was raised Catholic, and my thinking was, if anything bad happens to you, it's coming from up there, and there's a reason it's happening. You've done something, or God is messing with me for some reason.
Nothing to do with that turpentine is highly flammable.
Right, and she probably shouldn't have been in the house. I mean, yeah. But you don't see your friends burning their homes down, and so I sort of looked at myself and I thought, there's something wrong with me that I did that. I'm bad. Like there's something wrong with me. So I took it very, very hard, and the timing of it was terrible because things got very weird in 7th grade. I think everyone I'd grown up going to school with changed a lot from 6th grade to 7th grade. They just became completely different people when the hormones hit.
What age is that? It's different in England, the grading
I think
system.
we're talking
like
from 12 to
yeah,
13.
12. Yeah, let's say.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So you said things got weird in that grade. So carry on with that.
Oh, what I mean is people that had been what I would consider basically nice and gentle people, suddenly there was a lot of, people are starting to be sexual. People are experimenting with smoking and drugs, and they're sort of on this threshold where they're going to leave childhood behind and they're going to step into adulthood. And that changed how everyone started to interact. It became about, that's when the bullying increased, the putting, people who were weird down so that you felt better. I noticed that like the really sexy, pretty women were getting far more attention than the smart but not as attractive women. And that wasn't true before they'd become like sexual women. So, and then the hormones that all us guys were experiencing, our behavior started to change a lot. We're just like, we're turning into werewolves, basically. So it just was like somebody threw a big bucket of hormones on a party, and then all of a sudden, I just didn't like it. I was very sensitive kid. Would have a lot of empathy for people who were being picked on, people who weren't valued for who they were. I had a real sort of almost like a superhero point of view. Like, I'm going to save people. I'm going to be a good person. And I just, became so introverted and disgusted with everything. I completely dropped out of the social scene in high school entirely.
How had your parents reacted to you when you burned the house down?
Well, I have to give them credit. Didn't get angry. Just they seemed to understand this was a big mistake. Little mistake, big consequence. And they were great about it, I have to say. It was also maybe a little too hands-off, and there was no suggestion of maybe he's sulking, he doesn't seem to, have friends anymore, or he's just very depressed. Maybe we should have him talk to someone, or there's someone to help. There was none of that. It was just,
Mind you, guys go through phases. I have a brother. I mean, he used to do fires in the bedroom with Ghostbuster figurines, and when he was 11.
I think we would have gotten along very well.
I think you would. He shot a full-length feature film with Ghostbuster figurines when he was 11 that involved real flames and explosions in the bedroom. So I have a theory that most men, their quality of life would significantly increase if every day they got to watch something explode.
At a certain age, it's absolutely true. Yeah.
When did you grow out of the pyromania?
Well, burning your own house down.
That did
will
it.
usually get it out of your system. I'm going to have to put my finger on that moment. I think I got it all in one shot.
So how does somebody who's painfully shy wind up on a stage improvising?
It starts out with wanting to be an actor. I thought, well, if you give me a script and I don't have to make up my own words and I can have a costume and hide behind a character, maybe this deep desire to express myself that was covered over by this shell of shyness. Maybe I can break out of my eggshell and be who I feel like I really am when I'm by myself, and the Sean that's in my mind, that I know that I am, but when people are around, I can't be that guy. So I started to take baby steps when I went to college for 2 years and was basically, when you're shy and you discover alcohol, it's kind of like this, wow, what a break.
Yeah.
So I really went heavy into drinking in my first 2 years of college, which destroyed my grades. I went in pre-med. I don't know what I was thinking. My dad just said, well, you have to pick a major. I went, then I'll be a doctor. I mean, that's about as enthusiastic as I was. And no, there's no way. So then I transferred to UC Berkeley, which is a big, sprawling campus. It's great for a shy person. You can be anonymous. You can be anything you want and find someone like you. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to audition for the drama department. And it was terrifying. I was soaking wet with sweat. I remember I was wearing jeans for the audition. They were blue jeans. And I sweat from nervousness so much before the audition that luckily the sweat completely covered every inch of my jeans. So it just looked like very dark jeans rather than obvious sweat spots.
Wow.
Yeah, I was shaking like a leaf. I don't know how they accepted me, but I just got more and more confidence when I was taking classes and I started to get in plays. Then I studied at the American Conservatory Theater and I started to think, I knew it. I'm an actor. I started to get over my shyness. So that's really how that was the beginning of heading towards who I thought I wanted to be.
These sound like pretty fancy schools. Did you have quite well-to-do parents?
Well, UC Berkeley it's in the California it's the University of California system, and it's state supported. So it was about $800 a year.
Oh, okay.
To go to UC Berkeley.
Okay.
This was in 1980.
Okay.
And I've heard it's quite a bit more expensive now, but it's still it's a great bargain compared to private schools. But it was not expensive. My father was a law professor at UC Davis. He did pretty well. My mother was a homemaker.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
So when did you come to LA?
So I finished college. I auditioned for something called PCPA, which is a repertory theater. I thought I wanted to be like a rep actor, like I saw at nearby ACT in San Francisco. It's American Conservatory Theater. I thought, I want to do Shakespeare. I want to blah, blah, blah. That's what I thought. So I did that for a summer. When the summer was over, I auditioned to stay on, and they said, no, we don't want you. So then I drove with a couple of buddies all around. We went up all the way to Ashland, Oregon, to that Shakespeare Festival, to the Utah Shakespeare Festival. We drove all around auditioning. I didn't get any nibbles. Like, nobody wanted me.
How did that feel?
So rough. I mean, a lot of being an actor is you just have to think you're good, and then you will be. You really just have to believe you're really good. It's so much about confidence. So if you're not getting outside support, or if the wrong person tells you you're in the wrong business, you're going to react in one of two ways. You're going to believe them and you're going to disappear, or you're going to say, I'll show you. And I just decided, I felt like I didn't have any other options. I didn't want to be anything but an actor. So I said, fine, I'll move to Los Angeles. So I think I had about $300. I had a car that I paid about $200 for that I drove down in that you couldn't open the driver's side door. It was held together with a rope. And you had to climb out through the passenger side. And so what ensued was about 10 years of waiting tables, terrible jobs, things like getting taken advantage of. Like, they have these scams, these people that prey on actors, like headshot people that aren't really
right.
And it was 10 years of just like floundering. At the age of 33, I just didn't know what to do. I tried stand-up comedy and felt like, well, that's not going to work for me. I don't know what to do. I saw a show at the Groundlings, and I thought, wait a minute. This is like Monty Python. This is like SCTV, which was another show that I loved.
Yeah.
I almost liked it more than Monty Python because I love celebrity impressions, and I can do impressions. So that's right up my alley. Loved it. Just thought if I could do that, that's it. So I started taking class. I got a lot of approval and encouragement right away. I mean, my teachers started to say, you were really cut out for this.
Wow.
You found your thing. And I found it. I found my place. 10 years of floundering in Los Angeles, age 33, yeah.
Which is in LA years, like 80.
Yeah.
That's late in the game.
I was about
33.
8 to 9 years older than everyone else.
Yeah, I know that feeling. And so how fast from taking classes did you wind up in the main company?
2 years, which is incredibly fast for modern day. The situation of the Groundlings is much different. There is an extra level of classes to get through. The competition is much more fierce, and there are sometimes waiting lists between levels. It takes 3, 4, 5 years. But the odds of even getting into the Sunday company, which is one level below the main, are pretty long odds.
Right.
If you look at everyone who begins their improv training at the lowest level at the Groundlings, how many of them eventually end up even in the Sunday company? I don't know what the percentage is, but it's very low.
Right.
Main company, even lower. There can only be 30 Groundlings at one time. So if there are 30 and no one leaves, it doesn't matter how good you are. You're not getting in the main company. And if you're in the main company, the great perk is you can't be kicked out if you keep doing shows. If you're in the Sunday company, every 6 months you're evaluated, and you might get a phone call. It's like, yep, you're done. You've been at the training the Groundlings 4 or 5 years or more. You had a good time in the Sunday company. Great. Goodbye.
Wow.
It's brutal.
Wow.
I really feel for the Groundlings never told me no. So I know that most people at some point are told, nope, that's it. I know you want to be in the main company. It's very hard once you start training at the Groundlings and going to shows not to sort of see yourself like, I would like to be in the main company. I certainly did. And I'm just one of the ones that made it. I mean, I'm glad I was as old as I was when I went through, because I think I had a little bit more life experience to draw on with my comedy than maybe a 23-year-old or a 23-year-old rather than a 33-year-old. I don't know if I would have gotten through at 23. I was too big of a clown. I had my head up my ass, really, and probably couldn't have handled emotionally the stress and the competition as well as I, don't think I handled it brilliantly even at 33, but certainly I got through.
So when you were a main stage Groundling, who were some of the alums that you got to work with?
Oh, I'm going to leave people out. Well, I was in the Sunday company with Will Ferrell, and he was called up by SNL right as I became a main company member. This was 95. And so I never got to do main company shows with him, but I did perform with Will in the Sunday company.
How was he to work with?
Very interesting guy. I use him as an example when I teach improv as someone who has an ease about him that is almost scary. You know how most people have a voice in their head that you observe yourself and you wonder, how am I doing? There's a little self-doubt. You're a little watching yourself, evaluating yourself. Will just seems to do what he's doing, fully committed to the present moment, and it's if he's not looking for any approval for what he's doing. He's not needy. He doesn't need anything from an audience. He's doing what he wants to do, and if he doesn't get a laugh, it doesn't seem to affect him at all. And it's almost like because he is so disconnected from needing something for himself from the audience, seemingly, audiences laugh at him more easily because they don't feel like, if I don't laugh at this guy, it's going to break his heart.
Right.
There isn't that stress. His general attitude of just like, whatever. In an interview, I think he described his general attitude towards his performing in a baseball metaphor. He said, you know what? I just don't squeeze the bat too tight. I don't swing for the fences. I swing free and easy. And more than anyone I can remember going through that program, he had an ease that audiences could sense on an animal level.
Wow. And
they were more inclined to laugh at something he was doing. He's also, despite the fact that, you know, he does break and laugh sometimes on SNL, he has an ability to do really ridiculous things and not crack himself up. He fully commits to doing it. And that committed Will Ferrell face is so funny. I also describe Will as a cat because my cat can make a mistake. Like, my cat is a little heavy, and when she tries to jump up on the couch, if she fails and falls back, she's over it. There's no like, oh, I fell and struck. Nothing. Also, cats don't think. They're just there. They don't think, what am I going to do in an hour? What did I do yesterday? Oh, I'm die someday. What does that mean? No, there's no thought. There's some dust. And I hope, someday he doesn't hear this and think, what are you talking about? I sometimes got the feeling when I looked in his eyes that I wasn't looking at a human being's eyes. I was looking at a cat. There's a way that a cat just looks at you. The cat isn't wondering what you're thinking about it. The cat is just fully present, going, there you are.
Yeah.
And it's a little unnerving, I have to say, to not see any self-doubt in another human being, any sort of vulnerability or, I don't know if it's put on, what's really going on inside of him, or if that's just who he is, but it's an amazing. Well, I consider him in a way the antithesis of me. I am such a thinker. I'm so in my head. I'm susceptible to self-doubt. So what I imagine Will is like inside his head, I so envy. I really do.
I wonder what kind of childhood he had.
I do too. I knew he grew up in Irvine. Maybe there's something in the water. Or maybe Will had extremely supportive parents.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know his dad was a musician. I mean, really,
My dad was a musician too, and
that's
it has not helped in any way at all.
All right, well, let's cross that. That's impossible.
He probably has one thing in his favor, that he didn't burn a house down when he was 12.
He may have escaped any real scarring.
Trauma.
He may just have skated through. I really don't know. But you asked, this came from you asking about alums,
Sure.
so I'd be remiss if I didn't say. I was very good friends with Chris Kattan.
Okay.
Complete opposite of me, total extrovert, but I learned a lot from him. And maybe he learned some from me because I'm a thinker and an introvert. So we were sort of like, Mutt and Jeff, very dissimilar, but we really got along. Jennifer Coolidge, I did many shows with. She's just hilarious, great characters, actress. Rachel Harris, hilarious characters, really, really funny. Gosh, I feel so bad. Anna Gosteyer, Chris Parnell.
Did you ever do shows with Kristen Wiig, or was that a different time frame?
I knew Kristen Wiig. Kristen Wiig was coming up through the program when I was in the main company. So as she started to move up and started to show up at Groundlings parties, they would say, "Who's that?" "Oh, it's Kristen Wiig." And then I would start to go other venues and see, like someone would say, "Hey, we've got an improv group down on the West Side. Come down and see us." There's this great group called the Transformers that were just phenomenal. So I went to see a show, and then there was this improv group that kind of opened the show, and there's Kristen Wiig. I just got the feeling that Kristen Wiig was what in basketball you call a gym rat, which means she's always working on her craft. She's working a lot harder than most people who are dabbling in this. She's definitely not a dabbler. Like, it really seemed like this woman has like, was so happy to have found her thing. She's going to just grab onto it and not let it go. And she's just naturally gifted at that exact Groundlings style that then plugs so well into SNL, which is characters that can be repeated over and over again. Audiences start to love a character. They don't mind that the character is behaving basically the same way in every sketch. They wait for them to say their catchphrase or do their little wiggle jiggle or whatever it is. And it's not like hearing a joke again. You love seeing the character again. So, but she is just a great observer of people. She sees and extracts the essence of people so well, and then she's able to absorb them and be them. She's such a great, probably comes from, she must have a deep sense of empathy. Because she plays the soul of the characters. That's why they're so good. They're not just external, like, quirky freaks. Like, she puts on a funny voice and just this. It's like, no, there's a real core to her characters. You get them. You understand their humanity.
And you mentioned for how hard she works in your mind. I mean, how many nights a week do you reckon she was up doing improv when you say she worked really hard?
I don't know how much opportunity there is to get on stage, but you know what I know? She was often in other classes. She wasn't just taking class at the Groundlings, which I hope I'm not incorrect about this, but I think it's what I did. So if I'm saying that, I think students come to the Groundlings and maybe just go, well, I'll just do my once a week or twice a week Groundling class, and that's going to be enough. And for all I know, I'm completely wrong, that students may have like, no, FYI, Sean, the word is out that you got to work your butt off. So we're all out there forming our own improv groups, taking class at UCB, Second City, concurrently to Groundlings. So no, you're wrong. We're doing what she was doing. It's impressive to me because I wasn't. You know, I would just go to my one class a week and rely on that but not Kristen.
So was it SNL scouting at the Groundlings, or was the Groundlings actively promoting to SNL?
I know that SNL pretty much always checks in on the Groundlings. I know they were there when I was there for at least one show. And I was doing Michael Caine in a sketch and a few other things. I thought I was pretty strong. And so the word kind of got out that SNL's here, and everybody kind of tensed up. We did the show, and then we all waited for our phones to ring. And what I heard was that the producer, Marcy Klein, it wasn't Lorne Michaels who was there, it was Marcy, had seen the Sunday show, and her take on it was, really didn't see anything. And then she said, there was one guy who did a really good Michael Caine, but I don't think we're going to call him in. And I heard that, and I was just like, oh.
Wow.
Because when you're at the Groundlings, you get used to this sort of video game measuring of yourself. Like, I've moved up a level, and I've moved up a level. Because in LA, like, this is how the first 10 years felt. You don't get any sense of making any progress. Like, what am I doing? I'm just my life, the sands of my life are draining out of the hourglass, and I'm not getting anywhere. I don't see any evidence of progress. I'm just adding, student films to my resume. This is all I can claim to mark my progress. But once you're in the main company, a whole new thing takes over, which is, how do you get the hell out of it?
Right.
It seems like I've reached the mountaintop, because when you're a student and you see those shows, you just think, whoa, that must be so fun to be a Groundling. I laughed my ass off when I saw the show. I'll bet they're having so much fun. Well, for me, the reality was I loved the Sunday company because we're turning over material, and there was such a camaraderie in our group because we all felt like our heads were on the chopping block together. And at any time, any one of us could be cut. And so we were tight. We were writing constantly. We had to write 5 sketches a week. It was your life. I got into the main company and there was a little bit of a laziness. There were cliques. Instead of the main company being this tight group as much as the Sunday company was, it was like, well, those 3 Groundlings came up 7 years ago and they kind of hang out together. And those 2 were in the Sunday company together and they're really good friends. And it wasn't entirely that. I mean, we're spending so much time together. Oh, I left off Cheryl Hines. I did a lot of shows with her. She was delightful to do shows with. I found the sort of, I don't know how to put it. We weren't as tight as the Sunday company. I came in alone, which was also not great. Every 6 months, they vote new people in, or no one. Typically, they'll move in 2 or 3 at a time. But it just happened to be that when I was ready, they only asked me to move up. And so I was this new guy.
Yeah, that's horrible.
I came in alone.
Yeah.
It just didn't, socially, it was not great. I didn't make that any easier. When you date within the company.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. But who else are you going to date? I mean, what is the crass expression? Don't shit where you live. Or it's like, yeah, it's just trouble because you're going to break up and then you're stuck.
Was that in the main
theater company?
In the main company, you were dating someone?
Yeah, and then they get together with someone else in the main company.
Oh.
It's a nightmare.
Oh, dear.
So, and that's exactly what ended up happening to me. I kind of checked out for a while. I was just so, it's just so uncomfortable for me. So, but what was almost more disappointing than the lack that there was less camaraderie than the Sunday company in the main was I got tired of doing the sketches over and over again. It was the same problem I had with stand-up.
Right.
I didn't want to repeat myself. I wanted to be new. So the improv was fine, even though I was scared out of my mind every time I did an improv because I'm not naturally inclined to let myself go and just play. I'm so planned and careful, and I watch myself like a hawk. So that's why improv is so healthy for me to do. I'm balancing a big, imbalance in myself. So I enjoyed the thrill of it, and it certainly was a thrill. I got real bored with a sketch after I did it 10 times. Also, I tended to do premise more than character. You might enjoy doing a character more times than a premise sketch, which is almost like, premise sketch is like there's a joke, and you've told it. And now you're going to keep telling it 65 times. If you're playing a character, you're putting on their skin.
Yeah.
You're becoming them. And the performance grows with nuance and detail. The more you live in the skin of the character, the better you know them. And you start to get funnier and funnier ideas. And the character gets better and better and better, more into focus. That really doesn't happen with a premise sketch. So that was sort of a disappointment. I'm sort of talking a bit down about the main company. I will say, what a great opportunity to perform for packed houses, very little creative interference. I got to express my comedic voice. Also, I spent those 10 years with some of the smartest, funniest people I've ever met in my life. And when I left the main company and wasn't hanging out with them so much, I really started to miss like how funny these people are, how bright they are, and how they all, basically have this tremendous interest in comedy.
Right.
It was great to be in the main company with an asterisk.
That's right.
For me.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. If you had the boredom kicking in with the stand-up, it's logical. How many years were you on the main stage?
I think about 8.5 and a year and a half in the Sunday company. But I never got bored in the Sunday company.
I mean, 8.5 years is a long time. So if SNL, they saw you, Michael Caine, wasn't their cup of tea, weren't they coming every single year?
Yes, but a Groundling main company member, since they're 30, does not do every show. And at one point when my relationship broke up with someone in the main company, and they started seeing someone in the main company, and I went, I'm out of here. I don't want to be around this. I almost took like a 2-year break.
Okay.
And so you're just not seeing my ass on the stage. So you can just not be in a show. You could keep sort of doing shows that SNL isn't seeing and they never find out. Or you can kind of have a show when SNL just happens to be looking for someone like you.
Right. Did you have any other shots that they were seeing
Mad
you?
TV.
Mad TV.
They called me in twice, and that audition, I'm sure the SNL audition is similar. It's so nerve-wracking. You had to do 10 characters, 5 of them impressions, 5 of them original characters. Do each one for 1 minute.
Wow.
So it's a 10-minute audition.
Like 10 monologues.
Yes. And, it's just a war to fight your nerves because, for one thing, the very first time I did it, I wasn't smart enough to bring a bottle of water with me. It was doing very well. I did my 5 impressions first. It's probably maybe strongest at that. I can do pretty damn good impressions, I will say. But my original characters, not all of them, not all 5 of them were great. And I remember doing one of the characters, and suddenly the laughter, there was I really perceived a drop in, like, it started to turn into like, that kind of sound,
right.
like, not, where they're slapping each other,
right,
where they were when I was whipping out these impressions. And I started, that voice in my head started that I assume Will Ferrell does not have.
Well, he's a cat.
Yes, he's a cat. Which is, oh no, it's not working anymore.
Right.
You're failing. My mouth went dry as the Sahara Desert, and my lips started to stick to my teeth. And I started to I'm going to make the sound in this microphone now, this. Anytime I went to speak, it was so annoyingly sticky sounding. And then I literally couldn't keep my lips from sticking. So every once in a while, I'd have to like try and nonchalantly get my lip unstuck with my finger, like it's part of my character. It's not part of your character. When you start thinking, and now they know I'm nervous, they can see I have dry. Oh, it's just like, whoa. Right. It's like vertigo. You're gone. And when it ends, you just have this sense of like, you slump shoulders, you schlurp out of the room, and they do, well, thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
And you think, damn it, I had you for 6 minutes, and then I couldn't do it for 4 more. I couldn't keep you interested. I couldn't keep killing. And then a few years later, I went in again, and I was much more composed, but they still didn't take me. I think I would have been good on Mad TV because they do a lot of celebrity impressions.
Yeah.
SNL goes in and out. They're in vogue for a while, and then they're not. I don't know. I think I had the chops. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I wonder. Well, I wonder about the age because, I mean,
could be.
You don't look your age, which is why I had such a big reaction. So, because I literally thought you were like 40, 42 when I met you. So I wonder when you auditioned for Mad TV, how old would you have been at that point? You must have been
34, 35.
So
yeah.
34 auditioning for Mad TV. I mean, are they one of those shows? I mean, it's a young show. Do they have a secret unspoken rule?
I don't think so because I saw a lot of the people they were casting and they were in their early 30s.
Okay.
To really have really sharp performing chops, it takes time to develop that. So I think someone who's like 18, 19, 20, which I will say right now is very much in vogue, this instant stardom thing. Let's make you a star when you're 19. And I'm a bit critical of how little training some of the performers have on some major sketch shows. One of them is usually spelled with 3 letters. That's like, you're not ready. You're being thrown in my opinion, they, in my opinion, have moved away to some degree from really making sure that people have spent a lot of time on stage doing lots of characters and sort of these internet sensations, that get hot on YouTube. They call them in, and I get a sense of a slight insecurity with the suits at NBC. Maybe they feel like they're out of touch with comedy. And what are the kids like? My daughter knows all about this viral video, and I never heard of it.
Right.
It's like everyone's watching SNL thinking it's so old. And it's like, no, these great performers like Kristen Wiig and Bill Hader, who have such great character skill, I think they've moved a little bit away from that. Taran Killam is from the Groundlings, and he's on SNL, and he's an exception. He is very well trained, very talented, and I mean, he's the type of performer I prefer to see on that show. I kind of don't watch the show that much anymore. I try. Yet there are some very good people on the show. It just feels like something's gone awry. Maybe they're going for an even younger demographic. I don't know. I just criticized SNL.
What do you like to watch?
Comique for comedy?
Yeah.
Louis C.K. I like his show. It's more interesting than funny sometimes. Doesn't matter. I love it. I love him. His stand-up comedy, to me, is the cream of the creme. It is just boom. He's so willing to expose his flaws and be honest. He's so willing to be critical in such a politically correct culture and it's only increasing. He's willing to say, like, this is wrong. These are, whatever. He gets away with it because he then admits that he's also very flawed. And a lot of it is just he makes fun of how selfish he is. And I identify with that. I feel like a lot of my life is my struggle between being what I know to be a good person, who I want to be, and then my selfishness and the battle between those two selves.
How do you think of yourself as selfish?
Good question. I'm trying to think of an example of selfishness. Well, I want my stuff. I want things. Instead of thinking, we're all going to die, it doesn't matter. Wouldn't you ultimately get more satisfaction out of turning your attention towards how can I help? What can I do? How can I matter? Is it really all about going through life with this self-focus of I need this, what can I get? What can I need something. How am I going to get it? And your whole life is in service of that bottomless ego that you're never going to satisfy it.
What are you feeling that you need?
I honestly feel like I have not fulfilled my career potential. I think if I were to get hit by a car, and I don't believe there is a heaven, but if I'm like, wake up in a cloud and have wings and go, son of a bitch, I would be like, here's what I didn't get to do. And I turned away from performing a bit when SNL didn't seem interested in me. I kind of thought, I let that thought again get in my head, self-doubt of like, well, maybe you're too old now and it's over. And then and I started to get a job on a couple like guest spots on sitcoms, had a miserable time on the shows. No offense to anyone on those shows. Thank you for casting me. I was just thinking, when am I get paid?
Why was it so miserable?
Where's the check? I thought the material was so bad. Here's what happens when you do the Groundlings, if you're in the main company especially. You have creative control. It's your voice. You get to be the instrument of you. It's a dream. That's what's so great about the Groundlings. And packed houses every time. Once, and getting to do improv. Everything, all my behavior Nobody can stop it. I'm in control. Total creative control. Then, and I'm working with great people. You get cast on a sitcom, and sitcom humor, I was about to say no offense, but total offense. Sitcoms are just not funny, in my opinion. They get laughs with wiggle and jiggle, funny words, insults, pauses. There's no humor there. I can't find any. I thought Seinfeld was a great show, but really, they're just awful. And I thought, is this my life? I'm going to be like a guest star on a sitcom, and I'm going to go home feeling like I need to take a shower from how bad it was and how embarrassed I am to have people know, like, I would say, like, yeah, where were you? Never mind. It's like, no, I heard you got cast on that show. Yeah, but I think they cut me out. You almost didn't, it's like, I don't want you to see it. Because you've seen, something I'm proud of at the Groundlings. Please don't see me. So, like, I didn't work that much either. I mean, I quickly went, I think it's the same as the Groundlings. I've made it to the mountaintop, and this is what it is. So if there's a theme in my life with the stand-up, with the Groundlings, and with Hollywood, it's always looked better looking up at the mountaintop from the ground. And I imagined what it would be if I got there, and I climbed and climbed and got there. And Sean was disappointed, which is kind of lame if you really think about it. But I have to admit to it. Maybe I'm just, you can't please me. Maybe I have unrealistic expectations. Maybe I'm just not a kind of person who realizes, hey man, suck it up.
Well, I think it's a very normal thing that you're saying. I bet you if you took a truthful poll of everybody in entertainment, even the people that in our eyes have made it in quotation marks, I bet they're all thinking, oh, I still haven't made it, because they all have someone else that they're looking up to. There's always going to be a Tom Cruise at the top of their mountaintop.
Jealousy. How come I didn't get that part?
Yeah.
It's like, you're kidding. What are you talking about? I'm not even going to name a name. I think you're totally right. That's my suspicion. I want to be paid well by someone who appreciates real talent that I actually have, where I'm not masquerading or pretending to be good at something, when you're good at something, when you're doing it, you can just tell, like, no, I'm good at this. Mm-hmm. That's how I feel about teaching, which is virtually all I do now. I didn't set out to be a teacher. My father was a teacher, but that doesn't mean, I was like, Dad, I want to be just like you. No, I didn't. And I fell into it to just make money. So thank God I'm not waiting tables. Right. I'm teaching improv. This is way better. And then as the years went by and I still needed the income, I started to get, in my opinion, better and better and better at teaching. So I would say from where I am now, age 56, it's, I feel like I'm a teacher. Did I want to be a teacher? No, but I'm good at it. So at least I'm doing something I'm very good at, in my opinion. I'm being paid okay, but not what I hear from so many people who know me. It's like, Sean, you are so much more talented than this.
Yeah.
Why aren't you
X, Y, and Z?
And they always say, I always like swat them away. And like, for one of the things I say, well, what about voiceover? Your voice is amazing. You can do so many voices. Oh my gosh, you'd be great at voiceover. And I say, well, I've heard it's really hard. And then I look into it a little bit, and then I, for whatever reason, I seem to be a little bit self-sabotaging. I wonder if someone who sees me far better than I see me would have this list of like, Sean, here's your deal. Every time you get what you want, you don't want it anymore. Or you basically are giving in to your fear of failure by not quite trying. I also tried to be a screenwriter. And for about 6 years, I wrote screenplays. I had a partner. I was with ICM, management-wise. And I started to feel like creatively, we weren't in sync enough for me, and I wanted to write on my own. And then my agent stopped being an agent and seemed less interested in me as a solo writer. And then I just decided, after 6 years, screenwriting is just too hard. You can spend a year on a screenplay and then nobody likes it, and it's a stack of paper. And I also have this fear of being homeless and in the gutter, because I was a waiter scratching for every penny I could make, and if my car broke down, I was finished. And that stress, I really couldn't handle it. And so I have this economic fear, and the steadiness of the teaching, it's like I'm holding on to a lily pad and I won't jump into the river and get somewhere better, because I'm afraid if I stop teaching, now I have a mortgage, and it's like...
Well, as an outsider, and I relate to everything you've said, and I absolutely know that the financial terror, and I go through like a pendulum in my life of applying lots of money to projects and investing in things and making a video and a pilot, and really spending a couple of years trying to sell it and slowly running out of money, and then you have to do something.
Yeah.
You have to do a job. So I really get that. But in your case, and this is not kind of snowing you or whatever they say, you are very, very talented. The proof is on the internet. Anybody can go Google your videos. 8.5 years on the main stage clearly is a pedigree. Other people thought you were talented. Is there not time in your life schedule that you could, get together with a couple of other people that you respect and have your own troupe and do, how UCB made their own sketch troupe into a TV show with Comedy Central. Mm-hmm. You're capable of that. You're a writer, and you're, a master at sketch writing and characters. You've got all the goods. So it seems that all you need is to allot some time to do something with those skills.
Yeah, that seems like a lot of work, though.
So is there an element?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't get. Maybe, I've never gone, well, no, that's not true. I did, actually, during that breakup I was talking about a long time ago, I was in the main company. That was my only time with a therapist. But there's something going on with me, and I don't know what it is, that I just want to hide in a cave. I don't know why. I'm so afraid of starting something, or I use the excuse my age a lot. Like people say, Sean, why aren't you don't audition anymore? What do you? I was like, I hate auditions, all the driving. It's like, well, Sean, you should do it. What are you talking about? And my students always say, Sean, you're so funny. I perform a little bit in class. Mm-hmm. I can't help it. It's probably because I'm missing having a more legitimate outlet. So I probably perform a little too much in class. But I have my students say that, and I say, guys, I'm 56. Don't I get to stop trying to be like a star in Hollywood? Maybe isn't this kind of getting close to retirement age? Hey, man, I did 10 years of the Groundlings. I've done it. And in a way, I have done it. My primary goal was prove to the shy Sean that this isn't who I am. And I did it.
Well,
so now I'm not sure.
Well, I did notice you did throw out your age really quickly in this interview.
Yeah.
I will observe that was an unusual thing, especially in LA, where people guard their age like it's a terrible secret. You threw it out right on the table, and that's unusual.
And I do it with my students too. Did I do it in the class you took?
No, you didn't. That's why I thought you were much younger.
Rare.
And I was so shocked when you said, by the way, you were 57 when we started this interview.
Sorry.
And now you're 56.
But I do that. I always go forward to the next year because it's coming.
50, I think
I'm 56 and a half.
Well, we're digging into something here with you. So you're already forcefully aging yourself.
I know.
By tagging yourself as 57, you're doing the opposite of everyone else. Do you think, because I feel older than people when I'm in classes with people, and I'm certainly not going to throw my age out on the table in this interview.
I know, that's all right.
But do you think in your mind, because 57, that is a decent age. You've had hefty...
I'm 56.
56, I'm sorry. You've had plenty of life, 56 and a half. So I wonder if you're mentally conditioning yourself that, what? when my dad was 56, because
Yeah.
we're in another generation
I know
now.
we are.
When we grew up, people of 56 were retiring. That was a retirement. I mean, or at least getting ready for it.
It's vitamins and nutrition.
56 was considered old
Oh,
when we were young.
Absolutely. Oh,
And,
absolutely.
You know, and now, so I wonder if there's some conditioning in your mind that you're saying, I'm almost an old man and I need to knock this on the head, which obviously you're not. And you don't look it. And the world has changed now. I mean, you know, 60's the new 40 kind of thing. So I'm getting at something that there's something with you that maybe that's a block there or an excuse or.
Do I need to now pay you for this therapy? Because no, I welcome it. I welcome it, especially because it's free. Well, keep going. What's your theory?
Well, I'm just because I think
pen.
there's something there, and I noted it when you threw your age out, which is very unusual in the entertainment industry, and you've mentioned it several times. You've now revealed you say it to your students.
I do.
And you also claim, hey, aren't I allowed to stop trying? So then the deeper question is, do you want to stop trying?
I sometimes, Natalie, see myself in a vineyard in Italy watching grapes grow and being totally happy in a small town in Tuscany. I can see myself like, I just like quiet. I want to be left alone. I want time to think. I love nature. I love wine, sunshine. I love Italy. If you could just push a button and transport me to a different life, doesn't that look like there it is? And I wonder about that, or if I would, after a week, be going nuts. Feel like, I gotta get out of here. And
we've already learned with you that anything that you put on a pedestal, once you attain it, becomes boring pretty much instantly. So that's a Sean thing we've learned.
Burn this vineyard down.
Well, what about this then? So if you find yourself fantasizing about retiring, could it be, and Italy and Tuscany?
Well, you're right, I am.
What if there's a part of you that might what if you feel guilty for stopping trying because you feel, in LA, I can tell you, because I was just back in the UK for quite a long time. And when I came back, I was aware immediately of the magnifying glass in Los Angeles that you've got to be on it and working to succeed. And it's an LA thing. That's the real 30-mile zone, TMZ. You step into that TMZ, you better be on your game and on form and doing everything you can to make it. And when you go to another place in the world, life becomes normal and you breathe differently and you think differently of your time. So if you were in Italy, I wonder then if you would think, oh gosh, I gave up too early, or if you just can grant yourself permission, you know what, I had a good go, I proved myself talented, didn't get on SNL, but boy, I've performed for tens of thousands of people, and I have all that memories. And now I'm drinking wine in Tuscany. And
I would
this
just
is
have
pretty
another
good.
glass of wine if I started to bum out. No, I'm teasing it. What were you just saying?
There's permission, and it's different in LA. I was saying that the vibe here is all about success.
Yeah.
Its focus is success.
Oh man, it just went right out of my head what I was going to say about that.
Something about...
Well, no, that's true. I guess you're getting a sense about me that I'm trying to slide into retirement or I don't, it's...
Well, you said in one breath that you don't feel you've accomplished your potential in your career.
No, that haunts me.
Right. So then...
I got it.
Okay, go for it.
What I was going to say. There's another fantasy I have. I'm a screenwriter. I live wherever I want, and I write the screenplays, and I send them to my agent, and they say, we sold it. Here's the money. Well, so I'm still being creative, but I'm all over Europe. I prefer Europe to the United States. Whenever I'm in Europe, I'm like, I like Europe better. It's old. It's there's so many different kinds of people in these countries. They're so smashed together. There's so much variety, and Germans are so different from Italians and so interesting, and the food is so much better. And, it's just, there's a lot that gets an introvert out of their head when you go to Europe. There's too much going on that's not you. You can't really turn inward, and that's so freeing for, you can just get lost. So that may be my ultimate fantasy I also think I'd be a great film director, but again, because I'm very opinionated about films, when I watch a film, I'm talking I watch them over and over and over again. I look at the shots. I look at the writing. I'm very analytical about film, and I love film. So if I'm in a vineyard drinking wine and not involved with film at all, I'm thinking maybe I would really feel like this isn't cutting it.
Why don't you just live in Napa? And then you're in wine country and you're accessible to LA.
But then how am I, is Napa is that the perfect...
It's your Tuscany of California.
I grew up very close to Napa. I grew up in Davis, California, so it was like a 40-minute drive. And yeah, when I'm driving around Napa, I'm just like, this is so beautiful. I love wine country. I love no, all of this is just for wine.
Well, let's not let you off the hook, though. We've got to get to the bottom of then.
All right.
Why aren't you...
You're going to fix me.
I'm going to fix you, damn it. Why aren't you doing what you want to do?
Fear in a basic... You can start there. It's got to be afraid maybe of failing, I'd like to think I would be great at it if I ever tried it. And that's enough. I could do it, but I'm not going to take the risk of doing it and failing. I just feel like even if you're really, really talented and having this idea of then you deserve to succeed. And of course, the world will recognize talent and you will succeed if you have talent. I have seen people with tremendous amounts of talent just get swatted aside because the thing they create isn't in vogue, or they're too smart for their audience, or whatever.
Well, you're thinking about the future. You're making a classic mistake.
Oh.
You're pondering all of your thoughts into what might happen.
At least
You've already
my mistake
planned it.
is a classic.
It is a classic. You've planned it out. You've already envisioned that you're going to fail at this thing that you really want to do. Now,
well, it's because I know what it is. I've lost respect and trust of the people in this town who will judge my talent. I lost respect for my agent when I had a screenwriting agent. I thought I sent her very good material that she didn't have the taste to recognize. And I just felt like, oh my God, you could write the greatest screenplay in the world and everyone could turn it down. Well, that's what happened to J.K. Rowling. That's what happened to the person who wrote Twilight. A lot of people who are paid to be experts at spotting sure things, smash hits, passed.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I can throw in a bit of trivia that I know a lot of heads rolled, at HBO and other networks for not taking Breaking Bad. It made the rounds to Showtime and HBO, and people passed on Breaking Bad, right?
That's what I'm afraid. I think of putting lots and lots of effort, my heart and soul, and desperately wanting a very specific thing to happen, which is my thing gets bought.
Right.
And then it just doesn't happen. And then now I spent a lot of time, didn't make any money, got to pay my bills.
Right.
And just instead of being content with the other things in life, having to experience a lot of rejection and failure, which I got a little tired of from auditioning.
Yeah, I've had tons of that rejection and failure. And also, I've been through the process of trying to sell shows, and one of my shows was my baby, No Talent Required. And this had like deals that fell through. nearly 8 years, I committed, and I would take jobs and work and continue. I flew to different countries to pitch this show. So I've been through that, and it's horrible to have that disappointment, and it's crushing. But here's the thing, when you weigh the scales, which is heavier, fear of failure or regret for not trying? So at least the one, you can put your head on your pillow and know you gave it a try.
Absolutely.
So get off your butt, Sean. Come on. People believe in you. You know, that's what I think. You've got to do something. And there's a thing now called YouTube where you bypass what agents think. And if it's good, people will find it. And that's what I put faith into right now. People will find it. You said it yourself, you know, the cream rises to the top, or you phrased it, the creme of the creme, cream of the creme.
I screwed it up.
But I know what you meant. The cream rises to the top, and you've got to have faith in that. And at least you're trying, and you know very well you're going to have fun in the process, because it's going to be fun creating.
It's true.
And it's your words and your voice, the making of it. You know, I mean, who am I to give you a hard time at all? But only from what you've said, there's a tiny part of it to me that's tragic.
Yeah.
If you want to do something,
I know.
Holy smoke.
Yeah.
Then I feel, as somebody who's only known you briefly, I've got to voice my opinion and try and say the words that will be a catalyst to you to do it.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. This is a battle that I have with myself and with others, especially my girlfriend. She really thinks, come on, you can do more than this. You can do better. And, you know, and I'm having this thought, like, I've made this podcast all about I didn't really talk that much about the industry or whatever. It's all about my psychological whatever. So hopefully it's interesting to people, but I'm wondering if anyone would listen to this and go, my God, that guy is so like self-indulgent about himself, or he's like
I think it's
he
normal,
just kind of dumped
though.
himself on us.
Well,
but you've done a few of these, so I don't know if anyone else is even.
See, I think people will relate because it's a very truthful and honest story.
See, I told you I can't help it. I can't stop my mouth.
But it's great. The honesty is great because it's the truth of what it is to be in this industry.
Yeah, I don't shy away from saying the truth. I really don't.
And it's the truth of having accomplished so much. And, you know, as you say, you got to the mountain. There's thousands of students now in LA.
Yeah.
Well, you got to an improv mountain that thousands of students in LA right now are striving to get up there.
That is true.
You know, but it's not enough, and that's the reality of it.
It would be enough if I felt it was enough, but I've admitted to you that I don't. I don't feel I've done enough. I feel like yes, I probably could have, you know, survived as a performer on SNL. And when they didn't want me, I sort of, you know, I had a friend who wrote on SNL who was always giving me like, here's what's going on.
Yeah.
And he described it. It just sounded so awful. Like so much jealousy and fear of job loss and competitiveness and a lot of like really great material, they don't like the good stuff, and they're, you know, SNL is killing comedy, and it was really hard on this friend of mine who wrote on SNL, and I made up this thing. Oh, I would have hated it anyway.
Well, you might have done.
I might
That's
have,
the truth.
but again, you know, obviously, I totally, you know, I'm on board with what you're saying. Better to get on SNL, discover you don't like it, and leave.
Yeah.
You know, don't just. I might not have. There are some people that have thrived on the show. I'm just, the things he was saying, I'm particularly uncomfortable with. Like, I love supportive atmospheres. I love people thinking of other people other than themselves. But when everyone is so obsessed with their own career and getting out of SNL, because you start to feel like a loser when you're in the main company, and then your buddies start getting on SNL or get a big movie. You're left behind in these sweaty costumes, for 99 people. And you're like, oh, I have to do these jokes again. And as the years go by, when younger people come in, to the company, and then they eject out of the company into stardom, they leapfrog you, then you start really looking at yourself as, you know what? This is as good as I am. This is my level. And I'm not able to get any higher. This is where I topped out. And you get jealous. There's this thing, this would always happen, especially when SNL would be looking for people. You'd be, putting on your costumes and your wigs, and someone would say, did you hear? So-and-so got SNL. Oh, that's why the chair next to me is empty. Oh my God. And you'd feel this everyone says the same thing. Or if you run into someone and say, hey, did you hear? I got SNL. And you go, great. But inside you're going, fuck. You're only making this worse. So it is possible to get on SNL? They must be, because you did it and they didn't pick me. I knew it. I'm not good enough.
I mean, this feeling, I just heard Amy Schumer talk about this. And of course, I've been in it myself in stand-up. I did a bunch of shows with Chelsea Handler and Whitney Cummings. So I've had that feeling of, wow, they're totally out of my stratosphere now. Well, Amy Schumer, I went to her Trainwreck screening, and she spoke about how before any of her current success, Whitney had sold her 2 scripts, which was pretty unprecedented to sell 2 network pilots. And she was either, I think she was like 30 years old or even 29, but very young.
Right.
And Amy Schumer said that she felt this pang in her gut, a pang. And she phoned her manager and was like, oh my God, what's going on? This girl's just sold 2 scripts. And the manager basically said, well, have you written a script? Get on with writing a script.
Right.
And then she now has a Comedy Central show, and the thing which she's totally skyrocketing, and she's phenomenally talented. But I felt it too. I mean, everybody, as I say, when you come to LA, it's like a popcorn maker. And all around you, things are popping. People are popping.
It's true.
I had something strike me as terrifying one day, because I used to assume that all the popcorn kernels popped in this town when I was, doing stand-up. And one of my friends who's older than me in stand-up, she's quite older. And I said one day, wow, isn't it amazing? Now, Whitney's popped and Chelsea's popped. And I cited another girl that I think was really talented. And I said, oh, I wonder when she's going to pop. And she goes, well, Natalie, not everybody pops. And I know now that sounds, of course, completely logical. But for me, it was like a popcorn maker that all the things are going to pop. It's just a question of when. And then I realized, wow, so you mean I could be here for a really long time and never pop? I could just be doing this, stuck in this hamster wheel of stand-up shows, having late nights and never get out of it.
Right.
So I know that feeling that you're talking about, and obviously big with having people pop onto SNL. I know that feeling, though, of, oh, wow, holy smoke, what's wrong with me?
You want to be happy for them, but if I'm brutally honest, the overwhelming emotion is, oh, this means I'm so uncomfortable with what I was satisfied with. Now, yeah, it's you really hate yourself for feeling that way. If you look at it very long, you think, this is a terrible way to feel. How can I would want them to be happy for me if I got SNL and said, hey, friend, I got SNL. You wouldn't want to see that look on the face of you did? Really? Oh, God. Oh, I'm such a loser then. I'm so much more of a loser now. What I also found, a lot of my friends who were friends who would get on SNL suddenly
cut ties.
They don't hang out. They don't. It's like they, And I sort of got a little bitter about that. Just sort of hey, I knew you when you were nobody. I've seen you throw up in your car, from drinking too much beer. Please, your shit doesn't come out in little bags. Come on. And just sort of like finding out, oh no, they're hanging out with whatever. There was, and I'm to blame for some of this, because I can give you one example. I used to hang out with Chris Kattan a lot. And then he was on SNL, started to hear from him quite a bit less. But when he would come into town, I would see him every now and then. We'd hang out a little bit. And then one time he said, hey, he calls me up and he said, Sean, come on down to the Chateau Marmont, which I lived in walking distance from. And hang out, come have a beer. I said, okay, who's with you? Oh, it's me, Vince Vaughn, Janine Garofalo, and Ben Stiller. And I said, are there any non-celebrities there? He said, no, what do you mean? That's who's here. And I said, I'm not coming. I'm not going to sit there with those people and have them like, why is he here? I just felt like they're going to ignore me. I'm going to feel like a total loser when Chris introduces me as, this is Sean. He's still at the Groundlings. You know that thing?
Okay, I've got you figured out. I figured it out.
All right.
Thank God. It took 90 minutes.
I'm glad I told you that story then.
Yeah, here's your thing. You think into the future and you plan what other people are going to think about you. So you already mapped it out that Ben Stiller and Janine and all those people were going to judge you, when in fact the reality is they probably would have had so much respect for you, and because everybody knows how hard improv is, and there are only certain places on the planet that are a pedigree of improv. You've got your Second City, your UCB, and your Groundlings, and your IO, and any others that I'm forgetting, I'm sorry, but to me those are the top ones, and you were in that. That commands respect from a comedic performer. I don't think any of those guys would have judged you. I truly don't. I think those guys, Janine's a stand-up. Any of those guys, they've all gone through the ranks. They've paid their dues. I don't think any of those guys got a lucky break. Janine did the circuit.
Yeah.
So they have respect for other people in the circuit. I just think that there would not have been a judgment. I don't think they would have looked at you of who's he. Plus, you're coming in with somebody, with Chris Kattan, you say. So you're coming in, there's someone who's bringing you in. If anything, they'd have a curiosity of, wow, this guy must be a decent guy, a cool guy, because this celebrity is hanging out with him openly. That's really shallow.
And he's inviting me into his world.
Yeah,
it's a very nice thing that he did. And, sometimes I, get upset with, Chris being a bit distant, when I've tried to connect with him. And I always blamed it on, well, now you're a big celebrity and I'm not, so you don't want to hang out with me. And I kind of resented that a little bit. But, if you look at that, he was trying to include me. He was giving me. And it was my own insecurity that sort of sabotaged He just had to walk up to Chateau Marmont. Also, it was kind of a thing where I knew when it was time to pay for the drinks, I'd be like, ow, this is hurting me financially. And they're like, what? This is not, I always felt like I'm such, I'm just not, I don't belong with these people. That's what I felt. But also, I did feel like when people that I knew before they were famous became famous, there was a bit of like, oh yeah, I don't want to get any of you on me. You're down there. I think there was some of that. I know that this invitation to the Chateau Marmont is clearly, he invited me. All I had to do was say yes and go. And I didn't. Out of insecurity. I felt like my ego couldn't handle them, the three of them going, who are you? And then turning away. So, yes.
Well, you summed it up, your ego.
Yeah.
That's again a common thing. Yeah, but it's unfortunate that you didn't go, because it's cutting out a lot of opportunities. I always encourage people, a networking opportunity like that where you're being brought in with a close friend who's going to make a nice introduction of you. That is really unfortunate to pass. And I'm always give people the benefit of a doubt. I truly don't think those guys would have judged you. I've never heard anything bad about those people. I've never heard somebody speak ill of Ben Stiller and Janine Garofalo. I think that they're decent people and they respect the craft of comedy like nobody's business. And I think you would have been welcomed. And I hope that from this point forward, you're not going to pass up on such opportunities.
Chris, if you listen to this podcast and you want to invite me to hang out with your celeb friends, I'll say yes. I think this was when I was 35 too, and it's 21 years since that. And I think I've got a better handle on that sort of thing now. But again, it's me obsessed with age and starting to think, well, dying's coming. My father died 2 years ago, and that was kind of like, oh, you do die, yeah, I'm gonna die. I really am. Because once your father is still above you, you think, I'm fine. And now I'm starting to make more life choices that have the idea of having a limited amount of time left, and who knows, could be over tomorrow, like making the choices out of that. And so the preciousness with which I was protecting my ego is starting to become like, oh, enough. I mean,
good.
just I do struggle with self-promotion. I will say that. I mean, I'm someone like who I mean, sometimes people will say, why do we need agents? They're just leeching 10% off of what we make. You could just get rid of agents and Hollywood wouldn't change at all. I'm someone who needs an agent because what they're good at, getting paid to promote you, it's like, that's my weakness, that's their strength. You do the thing I'm bad at, I pay you for it, then I get to do my thing. So I'm someone who really needs an advocate, or benefits a lot when I have someone who's representing me. But when I have to do it myself, I'm this. I was this way as a child too. I didn't want to stand out or rise above someone. I was very sensitive of their feelings of feeling pushed down. This weird complex of always worrying about other people's feelings and not shining too bright. And I don't know what that is.
A tall poppy syndrome.
What is it called?
A tall poppy syndrome. Have you ever heard that expression?
I'm obviously, it's the tall flower that's sticking up.
And people lop it off because it spoils how everything else looks.
Yeah, you're making us all look bad, so we're going to cut you down.
I feel like I want to say something helpful to you because you've been so honest, and I would love to offer something helpful. And I've had advice, and I've got some friends that I consider very healthy people. One who was on a recent episode of this show. And she's an incredibly happy person in entertainment, and she fully comes always from a place of gratitude. And I think that there's really a lot to be said for that. Once you remind yourself, and I try and do this, and it's hard because we're all dealing with egos and trying to get where we want to get. But if you really remind yourself, gosh, I'm a healthy person. If you're lucky enough to be a healthy person, a lot to be grateful for there. Because boy, once you have something wrong with your health, you suddenly, everything else is a distant memory because all you care about is your health. And then you have lovely pets.
I do, and a wonderful girlfriend of 11 years who I should probably marry.
Don't worry about that. Don't stress yourself about
I have a thing about contracts, so I don't know.
I don't stress about marriage either.
Well,
been there, done that.
Yeah, I know. I'm probably going to end up getting married, though.
You have a beautiful home.
Yes, I do.
And you openly told me it's such a great area that they've shot the Transformers right down the street and 6 Feet Under. So clearly other people think your neighborhood is hot.
Here, and I'll just...
You've got a lot to be grateful for.
I do.
And I feel and suspect that it's not in the forefront of your mind, the things that you could be grateful for. I feel there might be an operating on a sense of lack rather than a what have you got, which is so much. From an outside person again.
You're right.
everything. You've got everything.
Well, I have one example this is a perfect example of what you're talking about. There are people, of course, who are training at the Groundlings who look up to being in the main company as like, you must be so proud that you got in that main company. How great it must have been to be in the main company. You must think about that all the time. And, I wish so much that I could do it. You're so lucky. You must so appreciate it. And it has become sort of like, well, that's where I bottomed out. All the other people moved on to great success, and I'm still here teaching classes. I'm an alumnus, so I don't even really perform here anymore. It really feels like, yep, the train left, and I'm still at the station. So I don't walk around the Groundlings with my chest out, going, I performed here. I was on that stage. I don't get this, pride feeling at all. I feel like it's almost like everybody's probably looking at me, and this is all bullshit in my mind, but looking at me like, look at the bitter loser who didn't get on SNL. Like, students always ask me, hey, did you ever audition for SNL? You seem really fun. It's like, did you ever want to be on SNL? And I get very uncomfortable with those questions because I feel like they're digging in and going, so why didn't you make it?
Well, I can understand that discomfort for sure. Yeah. It seems it might be helpful to put on the fresh pair of glasses and realize that everybody's so self-centered in this industry.
It's true.
They are so busy wondering what everyone thinks of them. The last thing they're actually thinking about is you.
Me. Right.
And that's a huge weight that could be taken off your shoulders. And that's probably takes us back to what you said about Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
That's probably that magic cat-like ingredient that he's not wondering what other people think about him.
It certainly doesn't seem like he is, yeah. I bet he must to some degree, but, well, that's the whole introverts, the secret of an introvert breaking out of that prison is realizing everyone is not thinking of you.
Right.
They are thinking of themselves.
Right.
If people were actually thinking of you as much as you are ascribing.
Right.
You think about it for a second. It's impossible. They couldn't do it.
Right.
There's too many other people in their lives. There'd be no time. It's absurd. And I know that since I think of myself so much, it's reasonable to assume that so is everyone else, of course.
Obama is running the country, and most of us are not thinking about him.
Yeah.
And he's running the whole country. He has the biggest job of everybody, and we're not thinking about him.
No.
Because we've got our own lives. And I want you to just get on with being your talented self and try and, it's a habit not to try and catch yourself thinking of when you're jumping into the future and thinking what other people are going to react to you and think of you.
No, I'm laughing because, this is a podcast where you want to get information about the comedy world. And it's like, I must be so in need of therapy that even when someone is trying to interview me about the industry, it ends up being, here's what you need to do. Here's why you need to, get out of this funk you're in. I'm sort of making fun of myself, but, there's a lot of truth to it too. So I just think, that's who I am.
There's probably a psychiatrist, of which I've had, great positive experience going to talk to a psychiatrist years ago when I had, problems, and it was so valuable and helpful, and he was a really good one.
Yeah.
So I never look down on it when people talk to psychiatrists and stuff. It's very insightful into the human psyche. I don't claim to have any know-how of it at all, but a really good person like that could probably really help you, and you might still attain those things that you want to attain.
Yeah.
There's no reason you can't, put it that way. There's absolutely no reason that you can't have all those things and accomplishments that you want.
Well, now all of this is going to be recorded and available, so maybe that will make it, now I'll feel like, now I can't hide anymore. Like, it's like now I have to,
Yeah.
start taking bigger risks.
Yeah.
And
I almost want to check in with you again, like a sponsor. At Christmas time, I want to do another podcast and see what have you been doing in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean to turn this into
No,
a
it's
therapy
very
session.
insightful. And you know what?
Okay,
it's very
good.
human. And it's
Well,
coming.
I'm certainly human.
You are human. We're all human. And for people in the entertainment industry, everybody struggles. Most people, I will say, because my friend Charisse doesn't, but most people do.
Good
You
for
can check
her.
out her podcast. It's
Oh,
available.
okay.
thegreyescape.com. Listen to
Okay.
Charisse, what she has to say. She's,
I will.
she's an anomaly, though. She really is an anomaly, but I learn from her, and it's nice to have healthy people like that you can refer to. But
Cool.
I'm grateful that you shared so openly, and I think
you're
it's
welcome.
valuable and insightful, and I do believe in you for sure, as I
Okay.
know probably everybody around you does, except for Suits at Saturday Night Live.
All right.
So
Well, I'll try to get over this feeling I have that I just threw up on these microphones, my stuff, But good if you're satisfied with it.
yeah, the next time I talk to you, I want to hear what you're up to and what I can see that you're in. Where are you doing your sketches
All right.
in LA?
Yeah.
And they'll be so funny. Think of all the humor and laughter that you're depriving people of because
You're right.
not
Yeah, I
doing
should do
sketches.
it for them.
It's a novel
do.
idea to do things for other people.
Yeah, no, I just want to please. I don't get any enjoyment from doing comedy. No, and I shouldn't. I want to help.
I've done
people.
volunteer work, and it's better than everything.
Yeah,
It really
no,
is.
anytime
it really
I've done
is more
anything
enriching.
like that, you just feel great for like 3 days. You're like, why don't I do this all the time? I want to feel good. This is how you feel good, and then you go, oh, I'll go do it.
Life gets in the
It's
way.
a selfish thing too.
Well, thank you for sharing.
You're so very welcome. This is a great pleasure.
And we're going to talk to you soon, I hope.
Okay, part 2.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Sean Hogan, sincere thanks for sharing with us this deep and personal story. Because you know what? When we're all at that grocery store checkout and we see those celebrities on the magazines, what we are seeing is the tip of the iceberg. Less than 1%. We're seeing the 1% of the 1% of the over 160,000 actors who joined the Screen Actors Guild because they had a dream. I'll be honest with you, Sean's interview hung with me like a silk coat with a question of what am I doing with my life to ensure that I'm appreciating the journey and not simply postponing my happiness for an imaginary destination that I may never reach. Today I took the coat off and I went for a kayak in the marina, my first kayak in years, even though I own a kayak, and it was fantastic. I even saw a seal. I will post a picture of this on my site. And then as I drove home, I passed Taco Bell, and I love Taco Bell, so I detoured my journey to include a cheese quesadilla with extra jalapeno sauce and a bean burrito. And I parked under a tree in front of Taco Bell, and I ate my Taco Bell, and I loved it. It's my favorite, and I was truly in the moment with my multiple packs of hot sauce, copious napkins resting on my sand, salt-stained legs in my kayak shorts, sodden with dubious marina aqua, and I felt truly alive. And I don't think you can ask for more than that. And out of this moment, I felt, you know what? It's probably a really good thing in life to recognize and isolate some really small things in your life that are easily attainable, like a cheese quesadilla with extra jalapeno sauce, and to love these things, because that love is like an ink droplet on a paper towel. It is impossible for it to not spread and become indelible. Think small, think attainable, think love. Visit thegreyescape.com for videos of staggeringly talented Sean Hogan, the trailer to an interview series Sean's launching this summer, and for a picture of me on my kayak and a seal. I'll catch you next time on The Grey Escape.